And Gerald Graham joins us now. He's an oil spill specialist with his own firm, World Ocean Consulting, joining us from Victoria, British Columbia. Dr. Graham, welcome to the show. I wanted to ask you, as drilling has gone farther and deeper, there have been great strides in technology there. When it comes to spill response technology, tell us what great strides have been made there. We're still seeing people with rakes and shovels and booms. What advances have there been over the past 10, 20 years?
That's a very good question, Susan. There have been a number of advances actually in 30 years, and especially I would say in the last 20 years since the Exxon Valdez spill. There have been advances with satellite technology, for instance, detecting and tracking oil spills. There have been advances with the dispersants that are somewhat less toxic than they were 20 years ago. Other advances with skimmers and the booms, but basically these are incremental changes and improvements. There have been no revolutionary advances in the course of the last 2 decades or so.
So the standard approaches, and some of them have improved, and mostly it seems that information technology has seen the biggest improvements, but the standard response seems to have remained the same. I mean, what would you be doing differently in the Gulf right now?
Yeah, well, as you said, Susan, information technology is one of the areas where there has been actually revolutionary change. I mean, we all know what the situation is with communications technology just in the last 5-10 years. So that's one area of enormous improvement that has been applied to oil spill modeling, trajectory planning, where the spill is going to go, and coastal sensitivity atlases. But as you mentioned, we're still faced with cleaning up this gooey stuff that ends up on the beaches, and so you have to use the rakes, and it's grunt work, and it's messy, and it's slow, and you're only going to get probably 10% of the oil off the surface of the water if you're lucky, and that's the same recovery rate that we had 20 years ago.
Wow, and the booms and the shovels, it just seems so primitive, that being the same process as 20 years ago. Can you address how trained professionals are in this? I mean, is this a factor here because spills of this magnitude are so rare that it must be difficult to keep these experts around?
Yeah, there's been an awful lot of money and time and resources invested in training and in drills. In the Gulf, they have drills all the time. They have response depots. They have tabletop exercises. But as you say, these spills only happen maybe every 6 or 7 years, and they never happen in the same place. So the people who worked on the last one are not around. They've moved on, or they've retired. So it is a challenge, and every spill is unique, and that makes the challenge even more difficult.
Can you talk about money spent, government money, is enough going in versus private industry investment? Billions get spent on R&D over the past 20, 30 years. How much has actually gone to find ways to manage a high-pressure, deep-water gusher like this one, say since Ixtoc in Mexico blew up in 1979, that was only in 160 feet of water. It went on for 10 months.
Yes, well, there has been a lot of money spent since the Exxon Valdez spill. I would say probably $2 billion around the world. Not much has been spent on controlling these blowouts because they're very, very rare, and we're operating in deeper and deeper water, so it's getting riskier and riskier. And unfortunately, the push for R&D now will come from this spill itself. BP has committed $500 million to R&D over the next 10 years. So it's just a fact of life that the money flows when there's been a catastrophe like this. And
then what happens later? The money goes in after a catastrophe, and then does everybody say, well, we'll fix it with fancier, fail-safe equipment, and don't have to worry about an uncontrolled gusher and go back to business as usual when the media go away?
Well, there'll be more investment, more R&D, there are more people dedicated to spill response. But then if there's not another spill for another 5 years, 6 years, interest will wane. They'll look for, companies and governments will look for areas in which they can cut their costs and expenses. And so oil spill response, or R&D, might be one of the areas that gets the cuts.
Right, and I know there are a lot of worries up north in the Arctic areas. If that's the new frontier for drilling, that technology doesn't even exist yet to combat an under ice spill if that were to happen.
Exactly. In the Canadian Arctic and the American Arctic off Alaska, it's a big concern. If oil gets into the ice there, not only would it be difficult to contain the spill, but it could have devastating impacts on the polar bears and on the life of the Inuit, for instance, in the
Yeah.
Canadian Arctic.
Well, do you see any revolutionary technologies coming out now that there's been this? Will it spark innovation as well as more money going in, or do you think that pipeline will start flowing more quickly right now? I mean, you say this Gulf spill is going to rewrite the textbooks on oil spill technology.
I think we're already seeing interest in new techniques. I've had inquiries from at least a dozen firms from around the world asking me how I can help them advance their technology using microbes, bacteria to ingest the oil. Kevin Costner has his scheme for oil-water separation, which BP has finally bought into. He's been working on this project since 1984. It's a very conservative sector. There's all sorts of room for improvements in decision support software, for instance, high-tech solutions. It's still a low-tech sector that's ripe for advancement.
Right, all right. Well, we're hoping for new innovations in this area as in all energy areas. Gerald Graham, oil spill specialist with World Ocean Consulting, thank you so much for joining us.